Wings was huge for them, and people hated it. They hated it so bad, apparently. I mean, it's in the daggone book. They hated it so bad that they had to create a hashtag to tear these men down. It is crazy. Hey guys, welcome back to Deandra J, K, and K. My name is Deandra, and today we are going to be talking about Beyond the Story, Chapter 3. Just a refresher, guys, this is a book club. I'm just going to be pointing out my takeaways from the book and like what really spoke to me, especially as a fan. This is not an entire summary of this book. This is not a summary of chapter 3, although it may coincide like it's a summary because I'm bringing out the biggest points of chapter 3. But to some people, they could see something in chapter 3 and it's really big to them. For me, if it's not as big of a moment, I probably do not mention it in this video. So don't get confused. This is not a summary. This is just my recap and like my book club of chapter 3. We open up the book to see a transition of eras. We see Dark and Wild swiftly and ambitiously because they were ready to get out of Dark and Wild. We see it swiftly and ambitiously turn into The Most Beautiful Moments in Life, Part 1. And this was the true beginning of BTS's rise. Because the music wasn't taking off, Suga had prior sentiments of being done with music if this didn't do well. He poured everything into this album lyrically. In one of my favorite songs, Moving On, he talks about how his mother giving birth to him made her really sick. He felt he had to be successful now that he was born because of all that his mom went through. And at that time I was very young. I think I was early high school and I didn't know Korean, didn't really look things up back then, but I knew the song was sad and I knew that there were heavy emotions. Obviously with the title being Moving On, I knew they were speaking about moments in time that were very painful, but they have to try their hardest to move past them. And it stuck with me. When I say to this day, that is top 10 BTS songs for me. It's top 10 BTS songs for me. So to find out that he wrote this song, and because I guess I just never looked into the lyrics. I just resonated with the song without looking. But now that I know that he wrote it about his mother giving birth to him and how that made her sick and how he feels a draw to be successful because of all the burden he put his family through, his mom through, I almost cried. That's really introspective, and I can see why you would have a fire lit beneath you because it's like, oh my gosh, you know, something so horrible turned into literally something so beautiful. So as you guys probably already know, in K-pop, it's normal to create a fantasy, but in K-pop, you know, you don't really get to see reality shown. With this album, all that was thrown out the window. Given to broadcasting stations was the clean version that didn't depict violence. But on YouTube, there was the original MV of I Need You that shows 2 minutes of violence, oppressive circumstances, and trauma. And it was very graphic for an idol company to produce. The video encompasses the emotions of behind youth, which is now commonly regarded as a concept in K-pop because of BTS. It's truly a testament of their power in the industry. Of course, at the time they didn't know that, you know, and I think it's the power of the fans. But like, to speak, I think people underestimate how much people enjoy real life stories. People enjoy the rawness of life, because I think when you're trying to put on for other people, it's like so you don't depress them. You know, it makes sense. K-pop is supposed to make you happy. K-pop is supposed to make you feel like, oh my gosh, my idol looks so good today. K-pop is supposed to create a fantasy world around you, and that's why the K-pop industry works so well, because it preys upon people investing so much into them, investing so much into this imaginary world where your K-pop idol is your bestie. There's a lot of parasocial aspects of K-pop, which we all know about. I think there's something to be said though when you take a turn from that fantasy, that world that you're building where everything's like sunshine and rainbows, and you make it like, I'm going through trauma, I'm feeling pain. I know you know what pain feels like. I know that youth can be a very hard time, but we're going to share our hard times with you, and so that you cannot feel alone. And this has been a trend in BTS's discography because their lyrics are so raw and relatable. I think they grew their audience based off of relatability. This new era broke down boundaries for them. Around this time, the K-pop industry was also expanding its influence, and it hit a massive boom in 2015, 2016. I knew it back then as the Hallyu Wave, but after researching, I found out that it was a part of the second generation of Hallyu Wave, or Korean Wave. So there was already a push. So I want to just make a point to say, when people say BTS paved the way, you got to be careful with that, because BTS took the baton and ran the F out of it. Like they took it and they went above and beyond. I am not discrediting them on that. But there was already a push from Girls' Generation. They won that one award from Nickelodeon, and everybody was like, who are these people? Big Bang, EXO was doing, y'all, if you're not an EXO fan, or if like you just weren't there, EXO was doing numbers. And I did mention this in chapter 1. Chapter 1 said it too. My point is, I feel like Girls' Generation, Big Bang, and 21, they did a lot of the heavy lifting. I'll put it like this. When I heard about Hallyu Wave, I was not hearing about Generation 1. I heard maybe here and there, but it was mainly Generation 2 that laid the groundwork. Then here comes my guy Psy. Here comes Psy. Y'all sleeping on Psy. If it wasn't for Psy's gimmicky, goofy music videos, people would not even like recognize that music comes out of South Korea. Now, I think at the time people didn't associate Psy with K-pop. I don't think people knew what K-pop was. He was the first person to reach 1 billion on a music video. Like, let's put some respect on other people's names. BTS definitely took the baton and ran. I am not discrediting that. They have knocked down doors that nobody else has. But there was a group ahead of them that really laid the groundwork for the Hallyu Wave. And like I mentioned, Psy is a huge name. Like, don't be crazy. If you're on this channel, we put respect on other artists' names. It's not just all BTS. Like, I love BTS, like huge army, but let's be realistic. Let's be realistic, okay? Upon hearing I Need You, the boys knew that they struck gold. It was a turning point, like I said, for BTS, and even Jungkook has said, and I quote, "It was like this was the beginning, our beginning." I Need You was released on April 29th, 2015 across all music platforms at 12 a.m. midnight. And an hour later, the director of Big Hit at the time, Lin Zo-yoon, he shouted in surprise and he was like, "It just entered number 2 on the Melon Live chart," which had the greatest market share of all music streaming platforms in South Korea. The members were shocked, gooped and gagged. Jimin didn't realize that the fans had grown to be so many people. And it just leads me personally back to a time when I was on Kpop Amino. And it was, if you don't know what that is, it was basically a platform like Tumblr where you can post about things, but it had to be about K-pop. And I had a few posts on there. I really wish I could go back on there, but they deleted the whole platform. I had a post that went viral. It was about BTS, and I just remember before that post, there was this girl who was my friend on there. She was telling me, like, hey, you gotta listen to BTS. And I was fighting it for months because my sister was also trying to get me into BTS. Luckily, I went ahead and just said, let me see what this is about. I go on YouTube, I type in I Need You. The rest is history. So that was 2015. Around, if they put it out in August, I got into them probably around September, October, definitely by October of 2015. Anyway, I just want to recall immediate thoughts that I had upon watching the music video I Need You. I instantly took note of how Namjoon sounded. I loved how he sounds. I love his voice. And I think a lot of ARMY Namjoon biases love his voice. I loved how everyone looked, the aesthetic. I loved how dark and real it was. And I also liked that they gave a lot of content to the international audiences. We got to see music videos, bangtan bombs of them receiving awards. We got to hear their thoughts inside their studio. Thank you Bangtan subs, because at the time they came in clutch. Like, oh my gosh, you just don't even know. Like, or maybe you do, but Bangtan subs, you're really that girl. Everything was so iconic. 2015 was such a good year for K-pop. The most beautiful moments in life set a new standard in K-pop other than what was offered from SM and YG. BTS had created series concepts for albums in an album planning method that allowed for multiple interpretations from a single story. They made use of beats that raise a song's energy, like seen in the song Dope. I noticed at this point in the book, they're being very diplomatic when discussing interminglings of nationally syndicated variety shows who had ties with bigger companies at the time. So instead of painting it like in a more negative light, like ARMY typically does, the book says that they wanted ratings, so they stuck to the groups who come from big companies like SM Entertainment. During that time though, the variety shows weren't just saying no to BTS. If BTS was let on, they were freaking mean to them. They were horrible to them. If you want to know more about that, I highly suggest you do your research, because the things that I've heard is extensive. So BTS got around to making their new variety show because of this, called Run BTS. And it did better than any variety show ever made in Korea, if that's how you do it. The book mentions as well the hashtag Break Wings movement that spread all over social media that attempted to ruin them at the time. And I think that's very interesting because it goes to show BTS themselves knew about that movement. But I completely missed this era of time. I missed the whole EXO battle. Like, my feed was great. I was loving BTS. I was loving everything K-pop. That's why this channel is Kpopandkurls, or, you know, it turned into DeAndre J, K and K. K and K meaning Kpopandkurls, because it wasn't just the BTS channel. Like, I enjoyed everything about K-pop, and I am very happy that I got into other artists before I got into BTS, because I have a greater appreciation for the industry and how many great idols it has produced and how many people BTS themselves were inspired by. But going back to the campaign, my feed was not that. I only saw great things. And in 2017, you can look on my channel, I went to a Korean culture festival here in Atlanta. People were so excited to hear BTS on the speaker. When I tell you BTS had gotten huge by 2017, I am not over exaggerating. They were big within K-pop spaces. Wings was huge for them, and people hated it. They hated it so bad, apparently. I mean, it's in the daggone book. They hated it so bad that they had to create a hashtag to tear these men down. It is crazy. Oh, this is crazy. So, to wrap up, the Most Beautiful Moments in Life album, the one back here, it sold 55,500 copies. That tripled what Dark and Wild had sold. Moving on towards the later part of the book, ARMY was mentioned and how we built this fandom to be what it is. They say in the book, they're not entirely clear why we're loyal and dedicated, but they assume it may be perhaps because BTS acknowledged their fan base. Constantly, they're thanking ARMY. And it kind of reminds me of Nicki Minaj and Barb's. Nicki Minaj can put a battery in the Barb's back in the day, and they would go running at her beck and call. I think that's what ARMY is. And BTS did a great job with that. The parasocialism there is so good. It's so good. I was thinking about this the other day. The parasocial relationship between ARMY and BTS runs so deep. Understandably, because of past issues that have come into K-pop regarding BTS, and their fan base has always had to defend them, always had to push back against discrimination because they weren't from the biggest companies, you know, that kind of stuff. But it runs so deep that Jungkook has ARMY written on his fingers. And I thought about that, like, dang, like, you're really down. Like, there's people who are like, oh, I do this for a living, but y'all get on my nerves so much sometimes that I have to separate myself. Jungkook, I feel like BTS, Jungkook especially, because he's been having a really hard year, but I feel like they go through so much. They give so much of themselves just to give back to ARMY, who obviously ARMY is huge. Like, the amount of people I saw at the stadium alone when I went to Tampa day 2 was enormous. Obviously, they don't know everybody's faces. They don't know everyone. They still are willing to give so much content, so much of themselves, right? Tattoo on their body the name of their fandom. Like, I don't even know if Nicki Minaj has Barb's written on her body. Do you get what I mean? Anyway, so that's just a thought that crossed my mind. I thought this was very interesting, so I'm going to just mention it to wrap this up. So they're discussing burning up Fire, or just Fire, in BTS's discography, the song. Burning Up Fire is my favorite song of all time, Jin says. Before that, I was living without self-confidence, which I did hear him say multiple times. I think it was like in documentaries, he said the same thing. But just like I did in the choreography of Burning Up Fire, I blew kisses when I met ARMY. And because I was doing it in real life rather than on stage, they really liked it. So I tried to find actions they would like, ended up finding lots, and I was able to really recover my self-confidence a lot through that. Then that became my character, and I ended up pulling gestures a bit brazenly and more often, which I always wondered why, like, where did he get this kissing thing from? Like, why is that his thing? And now that I can pinpoint it and it's in the book, I am so happy. Like, yes, Jin, you go ahead and give out your kisses. ARMY, they go crazy. Like, at the concert, like, he had a whole moment and the fans went wild, guys. And finally, we are going to end on V expressing his feelings around BTS's success. He said that he would talk to his friends and he would make a goal, saying something like, we're going to get this award at this music show. And he would later come to achieve it. BTS would later come to achieve it. It got to a point where every time he was talking to his friend and saying he wanted to achieve a goal, he was achieving every goal. It got to a point where he would talk to his friend and he thought the goals were impossible to achieve. But they achieved all of them. And that's on hard work. All in all, chapter 3 was great. Chapter 3 took me down memory lane, like the other chapters, but this one is very special to me. This album is literally so special to me, guys. Like, you have no idea. Can you even see? Okay. It's kind of hard to see. So I'm going to point it this way, but this album right here got me through some hard times. Because of the book, I now know that this was an album that they also went through very hard times overcoming the music industry and their own self-doubt, their confidence within their music. They touched on a lot of painful things. They wore a lot of emotions to convey it through a very dark, trauma-filled music video. It's just beautiful. It's so understated. At the time, I know they didn't have the money, so they couldn't do like a huge box set. It's so understated, but it's so beautiful. And there, you can't see it, but there's like an indentation that says "the most beautiful moment in life," written in Chinese characters. And then up here it says it in Korean, and it's the 3rd mini album. These are all the songs that they talk about when they first put out this album, part 1, and I Need You is song number 2. Thank you guys for watching my video. Let me know what you think about chapter 3. Let me know what you think about this album. What's your favorite song in this album? Mine's would have to be Isa. Moving on. It's a tie between Isa and I Need You. Yeah, it's a tie. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.